So I just finished building the AMD test PC. Now I'm going to move on to the dual socket 1366 test PC. The kind of main concept with this particular build is to have a lot of cores, a lot of RAM for virtualization, stuff like that, and that's what this platform is going to give me. So the reason you can see a fully built system here is because we're going to part this one out, take a few of the components, and put them in the actual build. The story behind this computer is I traded my friend a Xeon E3 1230, I want to say, or maybe a 1220. I'll just quickly go over the specs here. The processors are dual Xeon E5506s, I believe. The system has 8 gigs of RAM. The motherboard is like an Asus Z8 NAD6 or something. And then there's a video card in there, I believe that is a GT640. The video card will be taking out. I'll also be upgrading the processors to dual X5650s. And those coolers, I actually modified. These fans aren't stock. The original fans that came on here were these 70mm fans, and I didn't really think they could keep up with the increased heat output of the X5650. So I bought some fan adapters that came here from Greece, and then I bought some PWM Delta fans here, and those will be taking over. I also have this fan in the bottom that's just kind of taped in there just to test. I bought a bunch of really nice Delta fans for the system to keep it cool. And yeah, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and take this computer apart and get all the parts laid out. I'm actually going to do the processor replacement off camera, but I just wanted to film this quickly. So I have my X5650, one of the two, and it will be going in the board here, I guess, off camera, like I said. So it's been about 2 months since the last clip, but I have the X5650s installed. You'll notice I also have the RAM from the Mac Pro workstation in there. I wanted to have 2 of the 4 gig modules from the original system along with 4 of the 4 gigs from the Mac Pro, but I ran into some compatibility issues or something. Basically the system wouldn't detect all of the RAM modules if I had all of them installed. And I think that comes down to just mismatched RAM not playing nice with the board. So for right now I'm going to go with 16 gigs, and eventually I'll be taking 6 of the modules out from my new server and putting them in here. As for the case, I'm going to be using another one of these rack mount cases from the surplus store computers. You can see I also have some parts over there, and on top of that is a 750 gig hard drive. This is an SSHD that I got from Kyle. Ignore that it says Linux Mint, that was just for testing. Earlier I said I bought 4 of these Delta fans, these are 60mm fans. I'm going to be putting 2 in the back, and then I'm making a custom wooden drive bay thing for them in the front, for 2 of them. And then I also bought this 120mm fan from Delta that's going in the front. This is a pretty powerful fan, but it's going to run nice and quiet with PWM. That's the only issue I have with these little fans, is they run really loud because the motherboard runs them at full speed for some reason. I'm going to play around with the BIOS settings and see if I can figure that out though. So at this point I'm going to install the motherboard off camera. So with that said, that's the motherboard installed, and there are the back fans installed. These fans actually barely clear the first heatsink there, and they also overhang the RAM modules on the back. So I'm not really sure how necessary these fans are, but you know what, I have them anyway and they're brand new, so I'm just going to use them in here anyway. As for the front fan on this case, I have to unscrew this bracket here. And I may have covered this in the AMD test PC build, but this bracket comes off and a 120mm fan slides in there. So here is the front fan installed. I always love the look of the exposed bearings on these fans. Too bad you can't see it from the front of the case. So we just take that, align it with some things on the bottom there, and then push it into place. I think this case is slightly bent as well, because a lot of the things don't entirely line up perfectly. I'm just going to leave this header dangling right now because I'm going to do cable management later. And so the next thing, I think, is going to be the power supply. So for the power supply, I'm going to be using the last of the 2 430-watt Seasonic power supplies. I got these from the surplus store almost 3 years ago, actually. And as with most of the video, I did that off camera. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more on-camera stuff. I usually leave a lot of it out because my arms end up blocking the shot anyway. And with the power supply installed, this is when things get messy. So I pretty much have the system finished here. So it's kind of a rat's nest, but it's really the best you can do with a non-modular power supply in a small case with no cable management. The only things left to do are get the flash drive and make the custom fan thing for the front. So I'm going to go finish that and continue the video then. So it's time to finish the Socket 1366 test PC. It's been quite a while since I recorded the last clip, and that's mainly because I lost this tiny thing. This is a flash drive that I'm going to be installing Proxmox on, and that's going to sit in this USB port in the case right there, on the motherboard rather. So before I continue with Proxmox and everything, I want to show the little thing I made for these fans. I believe this is the first time it's been in the video. So this is a custom kind of enclosure or bay device or whatever you want to call it that I made that holds these two 60mm fans. We talked about those earlier in the video, and I also spray painted some 60mm fan grills and have them in with horribly mismatched screws. I'm gonna fix that one day, but it's not really important. So if we go ahead and flip this around here, we can see the inside of it. I have these two really thick Delta fans. These are standard 3-pin fans, but they use these PWM extensions to connect to their spots on the board right there and right there. And then they sit in there in the front. I'm considering taking the existing 5¼ bay and putting a hot swap bay in there or something, and same with this one. I'd probably get one of those dual 2.5-inch drive ones for this and the single 3.5-inch for this one, and that will just add some hot swap capabilities for this computer. Of course, you can see I mounted the hard drive. I don't think I got any footage of that. And yeah, so the system is in its final form, I guess you could say. I also, like I said in the last video, got the rack rails for it. I think I have 2 of the same rail sides installed, and my other kit has the opposite with it, because if you look at the orientation of this one, the longer tab is on the top, and on this one, if I can move my arm in that position, is on the bottom. So yeah, I think I got the rack rails switched around on the one side, but whatever. So I think with that said, we're going to go ahead and install Proxmox on here. I'm going to unplug these 2 back fans and these 2 fans for now because they're loud and I want to record a video. And I think its current fan configuration with the 120 up here and the dual 60s there is going to be fine for right now. But with that said, let's go ahead and install Proxmox on here. So my Proxmox USB is in the computer, and there's only like 4 USB ports on this thing, 5 total including the internal one, so it's up front. And my monitor is back here, and I don't really know the boot commands or whatever to get into the BIOS, so we're gonna have a fun time figuring that one out. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up, if I can find the power button. This is actually quite a bit quieter than it usually is. Like I said, I have the 4 loud fans unplugged. So I'm just going to press delete to get into the BIOS and then set the drive as the boot device. So looks like it's, I guess, ready to go anyway. And save it and exit. So I've gotten to the installer, and that took a little bit more time than it should have, but let's go ahead and select install Proxmox. And it's nice to know that my CPU coolers are working. So I had to look up a bunch of the configuration stuff, but we are indeed installing on our flash drive in there. And I have that drive unplugged because it has Linux Mint on it still, and I have to erase it. But yeah, things seem to be going well. So you can see we are done with the installation. So let's go ahead and reboot, and it says point your web browser to the selected IP address, which I think was 10.0.1.50 or 150. So yeah, I'm trying to set static IPs in the higher range on all my equipment. So we're in my basement taking a look at my server rack here. You can see my net backup 5230 and its array. And under that are where my 2 test PCs are going to go. So you can see our rails here are mounted in between spots 14 and 15, and that just makes it so it stays in the 4U that it's supposed to be in. So I have the other set of rails here, and yeah, so I think that's really all I have to say for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming because I have been holding off on really doing any YouTube stuff for the past like year. So yeah, you can see my router PC up there. I'm gonna eventually make a rack video, but that's probably another 9 months down the line at least, and that's really being pretty generous about it because I'm not really sure when I'm gonna have this in its finished form. It is very much a work in progress. You can see I have some equipment down there as well. This switch here is, I believe, like the second or third video on my channel. So I was just going to finish editing this video to upload tomorrow, and I realized that I was missing a bunch of footage from between finishing the Proxmox install to talking about the rack rails. So you're not actually supposed to see all this yet. This is for an upcoming video, and ignore that pile down there, by the way. If we go ahead and open my rack here, we can see everything is installed. I have my network switches, some blank plates, my main server, and my 2 test computers down there. Like I said, this will all be coming later in the video. So actually that's screwed in, so I'm going to go ahead and unscrew that. So basically what happened was I went to go to the web UI for this server, and I couldn't find it on the internet or whatever. I mean, typing in the IP address didn't do anything, and so I just kind of figured that it was going to be played with and then reinstalled anyway, so I would just kind of end there and whatever, but that footage is nowhere to be found, so I guess I'll just talk about that now. This computer is sitting in the bottom of my rack here. If we look around the back of it here, if I kind of slide the phone under the rack rails there, you can see we have a, I believe that's an i350T4 network card. It's an Intel quad port gigabit network card. And then there's the motherboard with its 2 I/O slots, and then a blank ILOM or whatever IPMI slot. I did plug the fans back in, and they're as loud as ever, and I actually didn't show footage of that, so I guess I should plug it in and show you that. So I'll go ahead and push this back into the rack and get that started up. So let's go ahead and turn this thing on. Come to think of it, it's not actually too loud. It doesn't look like my power button's working either. Actually, yeah, it is. It's hard to see with the light shining from the phone and then reflecting back, but the power LED is working. I'm gonna turn it off there because it doesn't really need to run for anything. So it's actually not that loud once it's all enclosed and everything. I can't remember if I already said this, but those fans are there to suck in more air for the overpowered CPUs to cool them off better. But with that said, I think that's going to be it for this video. At some point I'm going to be doing a very in-depth rack tour, but I still have to do the wiring for this thing, which, let me know if you want to see a video about that, because it's already pretty much fully built, everything's already installed, it's just the wiring that needs to be done for this thing. So yeah, like I said, I think that's going to be it for this video. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.